We all know that our heart is the most hardworking organ of our body. That has a huge responsibility on its shoulders. It has to beat, on average 72 times per minute in an adult human, to fulfill the blood requirement of the body. And what is the result of that overall effort put by the heart is actually called cardiac output. And that's what's going to be the topic of our today's video. Together with that, we will focus on the Starling law and what it says about heart contractility. So, let's get started. First, we will start with some basic concepts and terms. That will be helpful in understanding this lecture. Here, the first term is cardiac output. That we will definitely understand in detail. But here, let's just look at the definition of cardiac output first. Cardiac output is defined as the amount of blood pumped by the left ventricle per minute. Its normal value is usually around 5,000 milliliters per minute. There are many other important terms that will later help you understand this lecture that are stroke volume. Stroke volume is the amount of blood pumped out by each ventricle during each beat, and its normal value ranges between 60 to 80 milliliters per beat. Next comes minute volume. Minute volume is the amount of blood pumped out by each ventricle in 1 minute. So, minute volume is actually another term for cardiac output. And so, its normal value lies around 5 liters per ventricle per minute. Another term is cardiac index. Cardiac index is the minute volume expressed in relation to square meter of body surface area. It is defined as the amount of blood pumped out per ventricle per minute per square meter of the body surface area. Means, in addition to minute volume, area is also involved in this term, and its normal value is 2.8 plus minus 0.3 liters per square meter of body surface area per minute. Next important term to keep in mind is end diastolic volume, or EDV. The volume of blood in each ventricle at the end of ventricular filling is called the end diastolic volume, which is about 120 milliliters to 130 milliliters in the adult human, whereas end systolic volume, or ESV, is defined as the volume of blood in each ventricle at the end of systole or ventricular contraction. Its normal value is about 50 to 60 milliliters. Next important term is ejection fraction, which is the fraction of end diastolic volume that is ejected out by each ventricle. Normal ejection fraction is 60% to 65%. And the last term is cardiac reserve. It is the maximum amount of blood that can be pumped out by heart above the normal value. Cardiac reserve is usually expressed in percentage. In a normal young healthy adult, the cardiac reserve is 300% to 400%. In old age, it is about 200% to 250%. It increases to 500% to 600% in athletes. In cardiac diseases, the cardiac reserve is minimum or nil. These all were some very important terms that you need to learn for better understanding the complicated concepts. But before going further, let's have a look what we are going to learn in this video. First, we will develop basic concept about the cardiac output that mainly depends on heart rate and stroke volume. Then, we will get to know how different factors affects heart rate and ultimately affects cardiac output. Under title Factors Affecting Heart Rate. Secondly, we will discuss the factors that affect stroke volume and ultimately affects cardiac output under title Factors Affecting Stroke Volume, where our focus will be on factors affecting preload, force of contraction, and afterload of the heart. Here, under force of contraction, we will also talk about a very important mechanism that is named as Starling's mechanism, or Starling's law. That will explain the relation of stretching with the contraction. And lastly, we will discuss some other physiological and pathological variations of cardiac output. So, we have plenty of things to discuss. So without any waste of time, let's dive in. So, what is cardiac output? As we have discussed earlier, the cardiac output is the amount of blood pumped from each ventricle. Usually, it refers to the left ventricle through aorta in a unit of time, particularly per minute. Or the total mean flow in the circulation is the cardiac output. Hence, its simple definition is the amount of blood the heart pumps through the circulatory system per minute is termed as cardiac output. The cardiac output equals the heart rate multiplies the stroke volume, where the heart rate is defined as the number of heartbeats per unit time, usually per minute, and the stroke volume, as we discussed earlier, is the amount of blood pumped out by each ventricle during each beat. Now, let's put the values in this equations, and we know that the heart rate is somewhere between 60 to 80 beats per minute, and its average is normally 72 beats per minute. And the normal value of stroke volume lies between 60 to 80 milliliters. But, on average, 70 milliliters per beat when the heart rate is 72 beats per minute. The unit of heart rate is BPM, or beats per minute, and that of stroke volume is milliliters per beat. To find the unit of cardiac output, cancel out beats, and the remaining unit is milliliters per minute. That is the unit of cardiac output. And by multiplying 72 to 70, we get approximately 5,000. So the normal value of cardiac output is 5,000 milliliters per minute, or it's 5 liters per minute. That means, within a minute, 5 liters of blood pumps out of the heart and is distributed to the whole body. However, cardiac output is not fixed, but is continually adjusted to meet changes in demand. For example, cardiac output is reduced by about 10% during sleep, and is increased by 20% to 30% during excitement or stress. It also rises by up to 40% during pregnancy, and 4 to 6-fold during hard exercise. And this change in cardiac output is due to change either in heart rate, or change in stroke volume, or changes in both. And so all those factors that affect either heart rate or stroke volume will ultimately affect the cardiac output. So here, we will look at all factors affecting heart rate and factors affecting stroke volume one by one.
Explore our extensive library of over 1,800 video lectures to learn about a wide range of topics. Only on sqadia.com.